Well, a quick recap of what we discussed last time. Last time we discussed about how institution, in one sense or the other, has been a part of the history of our tradition. In the sense we could call the parampara itself an institution, sampradaya as an institution. So if we consider any forum by which people can connect with Krishna as an institution, then any systematized organization by which it happens, then to some extent an institution is unavoidable. But then we discussed also about how sometimes just because of the very nature of institution, some negativities do come up, how we can deal with those negativities. So today I will talk about 4 visions with which somebody might approach, and I'll talk it from 2 different levels. So say, if we consider a mountain, so I'm going to talk about 4 different things. That's like you can look at it at 4 levels, and then we can look at it. This is 4 levels, and another could be that if there's a mountain, we can look at it. We can look at it from 4 perspectives. So this is 4 levels. Levels indicate that there is a hierarchy. That one is lower and one is higher, but these are perspectives. So perspectives are ways of looking. So, if we want to say buy a car, we may look at it from the front, we may look at it from the back, we may go around it and look on all sides of it. So that is going around and having a multi-perspective vision. A perspective can also include levels, but I'm just talking, this is non-hierarchical. These are just 4 different ways of looking at things. So the class will be in 2 parts. First, we'll talk about these 4 levels, and then we'll talk about 4 perspectives. Now, eventually, it's not that one level is related to one perspective. So we can have 4 levels into 4 perspectives, and we can go over to, you can have 16 ways. And when I'm saying this 4, this 4 is, let's look at, we won't go into all the 16 ways, but it just gives you gives some understanding of how things can be seen differently. And what I'm going to discuss is based on 4:11 in the Gita. Yetha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham. That as people surrender to me, I reciprocate. So this is a principle of reciprocity. So in one sense, we have heard the word reciprocal many times, but I'll focus on one particular meaning of reciprocal. What we see is what we want to see. Could put it that what we want to see is what we are shown. So vision is proportional to intention. Our vision is a function of intention. And there is a reality out there, and it is for us to change the reality to whatever way we can. But it is also for us to change our vision so that we can perceive a higher reality. So this is also based on 15:15 in the Bhagavad Gita, where also Krishna says, I give knowledge, forgetfulness, and remembrance. So all this, also what does Krishna do this based on? It is he's reciprocating. If we want to strongly remember Krishna, if we are serious about our bhakti, then when some temptation comes in front of us, Krishna will give us knowledge and remembrance about the principles of bhakti. In fact, Krishna will give us the remembrance of bhakti, and then he will give us a knowledge by which you can increase our focus on Krishna, and thereby he will give us forgetfulness of that particular temptation. Conversely, if our intention is reciprocating with primarily our intention, if our desire is to enjoy sense objects, to enjoy materialistic pleasures, then what will Krishna do? Based on our desire, Krishna will give us that remembrance will become stronger, and then he will give us forgetfulness of the resolutions that we have made, of the principles that we want to hold sacred, and then he will give us the knowledge of how we can go about indulging, maybe even indulging in a way that that doesn't harm our image publicly. We can still have that facade of being a good devotee while doing other things. So basically, the point is reciprocity is a very dynamic principle, and this applies to vision. So the first part, 4 levels. So one of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, to put it in a more scientific terminology, is that reality is state specific, or more specific, or more precisely, our perception of reality is state specific to our particular state. And by state, we refer to the modes. So basically, if we consider, we could be in tamas, rajas, sattva, or shuddha sattva. I increasingly prefer the words sattva, rajas, tamas, the Sanskrit words instead of the English words, because like every language, English also keeps changing. And for most people nowadays, the word passion has acquired a very positive connotation. To discover your passion in life. What is it that you want to do in life? The thing that you feel passionate about, that's what will be your purpose. So the word passion does not have the negative connotation that we generally ascribe to it, although even that ascription is somewhat problematic, because the mode of passion is not all bad. In fact, the mode of passion is vital for the sustenance of the material world in many ways, in terms of all the challenges that face and adaptations have to be done for that. So because we may want to maintain, if we do it in goodness, but the world is constantly changing. And to respond to changes, we cannot maintain by being in the same state. We have to keep being flexible. Okay, creating this, trying that out. So in that sense, Rajas is required. But anyway, I prefer, because there are some mistaken connotations that come up for today's people. So I just prefer tamas. Now, tamas is generally associated with lethargy or apathy, or at the very least, blindness to the bigger picture. So I'm not going to go into 3 modes right now in the specifics, because that's a big subject in itself. So when somebody approaches a religious institution, in each of these, at the level of pure goodness, if somebody approaches, this is Krishna's pastime. That actually Krishna is performing pastimes through the Krishna consciousness movement. There is Prabhupada sometimes talks in this mood when he says that ISKCON is also an incarnation of Krishna. And he also sometimes says that Mahaprabhu's pastimes stopped 500 years ago. They're continuing today. And we sometimes do hear extraordinary stories of serendipity, or serendipity is an accidental good discovery. Nowadays, in the new age, this word is very common, synchronicity. Synchronicity is basically 2 things happen at the same time. Somebody goes to a particular place and they are looking for some opening, some job. And there is just a few minutes before that, or few hours before that, somebody has left that job, and the person or employer is also looking for that job. So these are often seen as signals from the universe. And the universe is the word people use for those who don't want to directly use the word God. But the point is that we can see that Krishna is doing miraculous things over here. So many people come here and experience some higher reality. And somebody comes to Vrindavan and beholds the deities and beholds the kirtans. Somebody comes here to Govardhan Eco Village and beholds the majestic Radha Madan temple. And there are so many places where the people have sublime experiences. So Krishna is alive and active, and he is alive and active not just in the world at large, but in the Krishna consciousness movement. So at this level, we see that Krishna is performing pastimes over here. And whatever is happening, uh, there is Krishna orchestrating it ultimately as a part of his Leela. Now, this is to some extent an Uttamadhikari vision. And as we know, the Uttamadhikari, the topmost devotee, has to come down to the Madhyama level to function in the world. Because at the Uttamadhikari level, if everything is Krishna's Leela, even those who are in Maya are also dancing in Krishna's Ras Leela, although they're dancing under Maya's control. So there is no need felt to preach or to correct anything. And this is not a vision at the with which this is not a sustainable vision if one actually wants to function in the material world in a sustainable way. So the Uttamadhikari has to come down to the Madhyamadhikari level. So at the Sattva level, we see this as a place for purification, a place for higher cultivation. So the Prabhupada, for example, says that in the prayers of Queen Kunti, that when people come to the temple, then the deities and the temple room should be decorated and arranged such a way that agitated minds become peaceful. It's interesting the emphasis Prabhupada is putting over here. Prabhupada is not saying Krishna is there, Krishna will make everyone peaceful. He is putting the emphasis on us arranging the temple atmosphere in such a way that people can feel that peace. Yes, Krishna is there, no doubt. But unless one has an evolved level of consciousness, one cannot perceive Krishna so easily. So, place for purification means, we try to create a calm environment. We try to create an aesthetically pleasing environment. We try to have a cultured, what Prabhupada said, gentlemanly behavior. When he was asked, how do we know your followers? He said that these are perfect ladies and gentlemen. He didn't emphasize that they stand 16 round and follow 4 egg. That's of course true, but the emphasis there was for speaking to outsiders. Outsiders don't really care about our internal principles and practices. They see what is important for them. Are these people well behaved? So at this level, what happens is we see this as a place where even if we don't experience Krishna, oh, I feel peaceful over it. There are many people who are non-theistic. I deliberately use the word non-theistic, not atheistic, because atheistic means they actively reject belief in God. And non-theistic means that God is not an important part of their life. Even such people, when they go to a holy place, they see there are some mystical vibes over here. Something I feel peaceful. They may not attribute that peace to the presence of the deity or necessarily to something divine, but that experience is there. So in Sattva, we see the institution primarily as a place for purification. And so we go there to do some service. When you're doing the service also, what we say is that, okay, this is for Krishna's pleasure. We try to do it in a humble, grateful, devotional disposition. Now, in Rajas, this becomes a place for achievement. Now, achievement, it is for Krishna ultimately. But in this, how much is the percentage of achievement? Is it achievement is 10 and for Krishna is 90%? Or achievement is 90% and for Krishna is 10%? That can vary. That means that, oh, we want to build a grand temple. So for Krishna. Now, for Krishna, is that the central focus, or is it we want to build? I want to build. So I want to distribute books. I want to preach and get 1,000 people to become devotees. So you may not have, generally within the devotional society, we will not say, I want to do it. We'll say it's by Krishna's mercy and Guru's mercy. And it may be true, but our focus, the way we see it, is that it is a arena. All of these are basically arena for achievement. Here we see it is a venue for Krishna's pastimes. Hmm. So achievement. I want to do great. In fact, and then of course competition. Oh, these people have distributed these many books, distribute more books. And Prabhupada also encouraged this. To say, when we are in Rajoguna, we cannot artificially adopt a sattvic vision. We cannot artificially adopt a Shuddha sattvic vision also. And that is why if we expect people in general to come here only for purification, then the problem is, how long are people going to stay? Okay, I come to the temple, I sit for some time, take darshan. Most people don't even sit, just take darshan and leave. You come, tell them, come and sit and hear a class. Okay, you can do it something. So I put this here more as also learning. We have scriptural teaching and learning. Now, I won't say that these activities are only learning and service are only in Sattva-guna. That is normally what we would think. But we all want to do some things. If somebody, okay, come to the temple every day and chant 64 rounds every day. I can't do that. First of all, I don't have the time. And if I have the time, I don't have the frame of mind for doing that. So we need tangible service. So when Prabhupada said double it, now Prabhupada actually very actively encouraged competition. When he said that he would come and stay in the temple in America where the devotees would distribute the maximum books. So now Prabhupada expected that devotees would be doing this for Krishna. And more and more books would go out, Krishna's message would get broadcasted. And the competition did inspire a lot of enthusiastic service. So here in Radha Gopinath temple, as well as Radhanath Maharajas encouraged the devotees, inspired the devotees to make an offering to His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj by distributing enormous quantity of books. So, and he said that, distribute books, we should become number one. Now, number one is very difficult. We mean the Radha Gopinath temple. So yesterday, last weekend, Radheshyam Prabhu was here for the Sunday class which Maharaj gave. And Maharaj told Radheshyam Prabhu, inspire the devotees so that they can become top in book distribution. And then Maharaj laughed and he said, and go back to Pune and inspire the devotees there to become top in book distribution. So there is competition, but the purpose of the competition is ultimately Krishna. So the achievement is for Krishna. So now, in this vision, okay, yeah, you're doing your sadhana, all that is good. Actually, do it. What are you actually achieving? And in many ways, Prabhupada was not in Rajoguna, but Prabhupada, certainly not, but Prabhupada did encourage people to engage tangibly in Krishna's service. So when the Vrindavan temple was being constructed, and it was very difficult at that time to get a proper cement. So Prabhupada was asking devotees, where are you? He was asking his contacts, life members. And finally, when cement came, Prabhupada came, the trucks were there, and Prabhupada personally watching the unloading of the cement bags. And Prabhupada told the devotees in charge, don't let this be stolen. He said, count these cement bags the way you would count the holy names while you're doing chanting. So he says the cement is being used for Krishna's service. So now we could say this is transcendental vision. But okay, finding where you can buy cement, how you can get the cement. It's something which the purpose is for Krishna, but it's competition. How much cost? How can we bargain? How can we get at what cost properly? That's one of the reasons why Prabhupada made his base in India. Many reasons. One major reason was, of course, Prabhupada wanted the international movement to have a sustainable foundation in its homeland. Another was that he found that whenever Indians see non-Indians, especially Westerners, white-skinned people, they think the default assumption is these people have a lot of money. And they try to cheat them. So Prabhupada didn't want his disciples to be cheated, and he tried to train them, but he soon realized that he had to be here to make sure that the financial dealings went properly. So Prabhupada had a business experience from the past, and Prabhupada made sure that the devotees were not taken for a ride because they didn't know the Indian situation. From the American perspective, everything in India was very cheap. Even when the devotees were being charged 10 times more than the normal price, they would think this is still 10 times cheaper than what is it is in America. So the culture in America is quite different. Normally it's upfront, people don't bargain over there. So much. Not that they don't bargain. But anyway, so sometimes to do tangible service here, we cannot be naive. Oh, this is the whole place of purification. We may come here for purification, but others may not be coming here for purification. Others, somebody who's building a temple, they may be thinking this is just business. So we need to have that Rajoguna also for serving Krishna. Now at the tamas level, it becomes a place for destructive competition. Now, of course, it can also become a place for lethargy. That means, somebody, Prabhupada said, this is not just a place for eating and sleeping. We have to do sadhana, we have to do seva. So that is there, of course, but that is not as big a danger for others. So this is more of an individual danger. If somebody becomes lethargic, somebody is, say, now again, this would be, I think, say, more for those who are already living in the institution. But for those who are not necessarily living there, and those who are living in the institution are relatively in a huge minority now, although they remain the face of the movement, but they are not at all anywhere near the majority of the movement. But for everyone else, even those who are not residing in the physically in the movement, it can become a place for destructive competition. Destructive competition means there can be the attempt for the hungers for power is there, and there's domination. Now we may say, I'm doing all this for Krishna, but the point will be for Krishna will become very minor, and it becomes, I am going to do this. And this is where one expression of tamas is the ends justify the means. Because I'm doing this for Krishna's service, then okay, whatever I do is okay. The ends justify the means. And so, we are getting this land for Krishna's sake. So even if we illegally occupy the land, the laws are favorable. When somebody from other religions does something, we become very angry. Oh, they are grabbing land. But when we do something, oh, it's for Krishna's sake. So, in this Krishna, it's for Krishna's sake. So it can become the end justify the means can be used not only to manipulate and dominate outsiders, but can also be used to dominate insiders. This is where things can become very cultish. And there have been phases and places in our movement's history where things became quite cultish, where very insular, very narrow-minded, very intolerant towards any questioning of authority, very demonizing anyone who questions authority and demonizing the outside world, so that as to create a huge fear of the outside world in people's minds, so that they don't go out even if they are miserable inside, because that fear has been created. So Prabhupada did talk about how in the 5th canto of Bhagavatam, there's a description of the hellish planets. But he hardly used that in his preaching. He didn't emphasize, he didn't want people to take to bhakti because, if you are not practicing bhakti, you will be enjoying sinfully and you will go to hell for that. Prabhupada's focus was never that. It was that if you are a spiritual being and you are meant for such so much better happiness than what is available through the senses. So why are you wasting your life seeking something so meager? Prabhupada also warned that the search for personal power, that would be the ruin for the movement. He also said that the movement will be destroyed from inside, not from outside. So that means that those who are hungry for power and those who are competing for power, they can cause a huge destruction in the movement. Now, now these are 4 levels, means that we should be rising upwards. And Prabhupada in the early 1970s itself said that now it is time for us to churn the milk. So churn the milk means we want to raise the consciousness of devotees. So generally, it is at here that somewhere in Rajas and Tamas, people will be Kanishthas. So Kanishthas are very external in their focus. As long as I follow the ritual of going to the temple regularly, nothing else matters. Whether how I deal with devotees doesn't matter. Whether I respect devotees, I even associate with devotees also, that doesn't matter. So churning the milk means Prabhupada wanted us to rise to a higher consciousness and thereby make sure that the higher consciousness is present. So now when I have drawn this picture of a mountain over here, what that means is that the mountain has all these parts simultaneously. So like that, within Krishna's movement, all these parts will also exist simultaneously. Now, depending on 2 factors, depending on the disposition primarily of the leaders and the disposition of the followers. So I would say disposition of the leaders will matter around 80-90%. But okay, I mean this is the approximate percentage, of course. So let's as approximate can say the disposition of the leaders will matter 80%. The disposition of the followers will matter around 20%. But eventually followers are also going to become leaders. So if the followers, for example, if the leaders, for example, emphasize achievement very much and distribute books, and now that is required. But if they do not emphasize adequately, that we need to do it in proper consciousness. Our purpose is not just to sell a book, it is to win a heart. So if we forget that, we might manipulate and deceive people and sell a book. And what may happen is that we may sell a book, but we may lose a soul. It is we want to win a heart also. And among these, this is important, but this is much, much more important. So during the interactions with people, it should be warm and cordial and polite, by which they feel I met a nice person. I want to know more about what these people are doing. So if the leaders do not emphasize the sattvic consciousness sufficiently, then the problem would be that even if the leaders themselves are not rajasic, the followers may go into rajoguna and may even go into tamoguna from there. And sometimes this happens that the gurus may themselves have good relationship, or at least a working relationship, but in the same place when they're disciples, and each disciple has the tendency for, then there is a power, there is a tendency for one-upsmanship. One-upsmanship means that I want to be superior to you. My guru is the best. My guru is the best, and therefore by extension, I am the best. Nobody will say that, but that is the mood. Then there can be tension between the various gurus. There can be tension between, it's not so much tension between the gurus, although that is also possible in rare situations. But mostly it is the disciples have it's like we can be zealous. Zealous means dedicated, having zeal. That is good. But being zealous should not make us jealous. Zealous is dedicated. Jealous is destructive. That means that you should not, no matter what happens, Dedicated means say, I want to serve my guru and I want to serve my temple, I want to serve my leader. And through that, I want to glorify Krishna. That is jealous. That is zealous. But jealous would mean that I want to make sure that you don't succeed. Because if you come here and you do better than me, that will be a disgrace and defeat for me. So that would be deadly. So we can have a discouragement and impediment. So at the same, destructive means it could be through discouragement. There are negative remarks made, or there is impediment. Now, impediment can be discouragement through criticism. Impediment can be through bureaucracy. Oh, this is not your zone, and you're not taken this permission, and you're not done this, and you're not done that. And now, of course, this doesn't all bureaucracy doesn't have to be bad, but it can happen where the point is making sure that you don't do better than me. Not that we should see that we are all part of Krishna's missions. This is all we are like doctors under the pandemic. There's so many people who are sick. And the point is not who is treating how many patients. The point is how many people are being cured. If somebody is succeeding in treating more people, we should be happy. So that vision is very difficult to have in Rajoguna. That's why it's very important that we have humility. And humility, it is the easiest way to cultivate humility is by cultivating respect, respectfulness. To feel, I am low, I am small, I am insignificant. That's quite difficult. But to cultivate respect is relatively easier. Oh, this person is also doing something worthwhile. This person is also doing something valuable. And that way, it is possible to move forward. So verses like Suna, the Suni chain, they will not make any sense to somebody who's in Rajoguna. But even if they don't make sense, at least we aspire for that. And then that will keep us at least pointing towards the true north. So it is the responsibility of leaders to try to raise the consciousness. And of course, we cannot outsource the responsibility to leaders alone. We have to remember, why am I here? I didn't come here for fame and glory. We all would like to have some others praising us and others appreciating us. But we came here for Krishna. That's why the key principle here is Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. What am I here for? To the extent that that is clear for us. Like I said, our vision is a function of our intention. So if we can remember, our purpose is Krishna. Prabhupada did not start the International Society for Temple Construction. He did not start the International Society for Book Distribution. He did not start the International Society for Varnashram. He did not start the International Society for Gurukuls. He did not start the International Society for, say, Vedic education. All these could be a part, but it's like the big umbrella is Krishna consciousness. We want to, Prabhupada said, what will please me most is to develop love for Krishna. Now, under that, we can have many different umbrellas. So we can have temples, we can have books, we can have gurukuls, like that. But our umbrella, say if somebody's umbrella is, say, Vedic education, and that is good. But in the name of this umbrella, we should not go out of the bigger umbrella. We should be able to find our space within that bigger umbrella. So this is 4 levels. Now, what are the 4 perspectives or 4 ways of looking at things? This is wherein now it's very easy to consider that, okay, the people whom we don't like, they're in Rajoguna and Tamoguna. And the people who we like, say, oh, they're Sattva and Shuddha Sattva. In this world, Krishna says every endeavor is covered by fault. 1846 to 48 is actually one of the most important verses for functioning in the world in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, work in a mode of worship, so karmanatam abhyarcha. But then he also says, sarva rambhahi doshena dhumena agnirivavritah, that every endeavor is covered by fault. So everything will be faulty, will have faults. So now this does not mean that we say that, oh, everything has faults, so any level of faults can be tolerated. But this four perspectives, so this the first part which I talked was, it's, if you think about it, it's this is the philosophical concept of the three modes being applied in this context. But the second part, so this is more of my observation and realization, and it has helped me to reconcile a lot of things. Which as I traveled abroad over the last 10 years, and I saw so many different varieties of Krishna consciousness. So it's, like I said, different people have different priorities. Now, so I will use the acronym HOST. Hmm? HOST refers to the four different ways people may see the movement. Some people may see it as a home. Some people may see it as an office. Some people may see it as a school. And some people may see it as a training ground. A training ground with like a cultural or a ritual training ground. That's what I refer to. So now these four visions, they can all be had with a genuine service attitude. Somebody can have a very, very deep service attitude toward Krishna. So all these four visions can actually be, sorry, all these four visions or perspectives. It's not that one is in Tamoguna and one is Sattoguna and one is Rajoguna. A person can have a deep service attitude. So, for example, when there's home, the focus is primarily on relationships. In the office, the focus is on tasks. It's on getting the work done. And now, of course, at home also there are many tasks to be done. It's not at home at the place. Home is a place where you can sit idle. Mhm. And office also, relationships are important. After all, people grow through networking. But relatively speaking, you can say in the home, the relationships are more important than the tasks. It's not that if somebody is not going to do a task, then you are going to say that, okay, get out of my home. In the worst case, that may happen, but that is considered a catastrophe, certainly a serious problem. In the office, tasks are more important than relationships. So, in the now, what happens is that both of these are very important ways of looking at things. And so, here, when somebody is focusing on relationship more than tasks, that is what defines a community builder. One who prioritizes tasks or relationships, that person is a project builder. Now, of course, you can say building a community is also a project, but I'm using the word project more in terms of, okay, building a temple, doing this, some infrastructure. I'm using the word project for that particular purpose. And these two are significantly different profiles. So somebody who prioritizes relationships, the idea is that, or somebody for whom this is home. Then in home, we might have in our extended family somebody who is whose capacity is very less. Maybe they tend to be very sickly, or maybe they are physically impaired, or maybe they have some mental cognitive challenges, whatever. But still, we take care of the family. We absolutely take care of the family. We cannot abandon them. But in the office, yeah, it's nice to have a relationship, but we have a job to be done. And the job doesn't happen, then you have to leave. You find somebody else who does the job. So in one sense, here in the when the vision is of the office, people are somewhat dispensable. So people are replaceable, not so much dispensable or as replaceable. No, if you go, it's not the end of the world. I'll find someone else to do what you are doing. So Now, for example, now if we have a situation where the authority has the primary vision of it this being an office, and the subordinate has the vision of this being a home, then what will happen is, it is not that the authority is bad or the subordinate is bad. The subordinate will think that the authority is so demanding, is so insensitive, and the subordinate authority will think the subordinate is so lazy, is so complacent. What are you doing? But now the idea is that now we all have our natures and we cannot change our natures. But acknowledging that our nature does not define the scope of the institution is very important. When I came from Pune to Mumbai because I had some services of editing and other things, came means I moved. So I was working on Adhant Maharaj's book, Journey Within. At that time, it was called The Yoga of Love. So I relocated to Mumbai. So one of the leaders met me and he told me right at the beginning, if you want to talk, so he said that if you want to get things done, come to me. If you want to talk, go and talk with these devotees. So he defined the boundaries. He said, don't come and I don't have time to talk with you. It was a very interesting way of putting things. So I talk with him much frequently afterwards, and I can see that he is a project builder, but he recognizes and respects community builders. That from the project builder's perspective, it is very easy to devalue the community builder. What have you done? Now, what is it that you have achieved? How many people have become devotees? How much funds have you raised? What project have you built? So, in one sense, here relationships are somewhat intangibles. Of course, when the relationship break, it's a very tangible thing. Tangible and it's tragic. But overall, the time spent in building a relationship, in maintaining a relationship, it does not give a tangible result. We cultivate a new person, and that new person becomes a devotee. A new person may come for initiation and then is a visible testament to our success. But then somebody who is a devotee, they're already inside, and we spend time with them. Okay, what happens? They're inside already, then they're already there. What is tangible is if they're inside and they leave. Now, this might give the conception that we should be treating this as a home and not as an office alone. But that is not true. The home can also actually be a place for gossip. Home can also become a place for as we said, as for lethargy. Somebody just sits in the home and does nothing. In the West, there is this. Many of the countries are welfare states. That means if you don't have a job, then the government will pay you every week or every fortnight or every month. So many people just do nothing. They just spend their time while playing video games, posting on social media, dreaming of becoming an influencer, not having even enough influence on their own bodies to even come out of their room. So the point is that just to say that the home is better, home vision is better than the office vision, that is an oversimplification. Now we want also to do services. There are tangible things to do. There is a mission. And that mission means that the tasks are also important. So there could be very sincere devotees who have an office vision and they may try to make relationships work, but if a relationship doesn't work, say, okay, I have this much time for this, and after that I have to go into other things. You can say that this person will leave bhakti. This person is so upset so much. Okay, that's the only time I have. Such people will quote validity where Mahabharata says that for the sake of one village, one person can be sacrificed. So now that one person who is sacrificed can feel terrible. I did so much and I just thrown aside. But from their perspective, from the leader's perspective, whoever, we think I'm looking for the larger good. So the point is, it's not that thinking of it as an office is wrong and thinking of it at home is right. Ideally, these four visions, the conclusion which I'll move towards is that no, we need to find like-minded associates. So like-minded means that if I am coming here with the conception of this is my home, then I need to find devotees who also want to share that concept. And then there'll be good bonding. But if there's a like-minded association, it's not that, and there are people who will come here because they want to achieve things. They want to do the things for Krishna. Mm. So the like-minded Sangha means a conception of both the authority and the subordinate. Now, authority subordinate is not the only dynamic relationship that we can have. We can also have the conception could be of peers with peers. There could be peer one and peer two. So two peers, if one peer is very much driven by the office mode, and they will say the other peer, what have you achieved? You have been in bhakti for so long. What have you been doing? What have you achieved? And the first peer can say, you say you achieved so many things, but how many people have you burned out in bhakti? You proudly parade how many people you brought to Krishna. But have you ever counted how many people went away from Krishna because of you? So there can be coldness and animosity because of that also. So many times when I see, I've traveled across the world and I have talked with many leaders, and because I'm not a manager, most leaders don't see me as a competitor or threat. So they often open their hearts and talk with me. So many times I've seen that two people, they are so bitterly critical of each other. But both of them have such devotion and dedication. So it took me some time. How could, if you are so devoted to Krishna, how could you be so critical of someone else? I talked with many senior devotees and I reflected on it. I prayed to Krishna. And slowly it struck me that they're operating with a completely different conception. And because of that, it's just that what the other person is doing just makes no sense to them. Now, when the focus is on school, now again, a home office school, say Prabhupada, for example, when the home conception he talks about the six loving exchanges. And he says that in the Bhakti Rasamrut Sindh, in the Updeshamrut, he says that the Krishna consciousness movement is nourished by these six loving exchanges. So he's talking there more towards the home conception. Now Prabhupada sometimes said Vrindavan is my home, Mayapur is my place of worship, and Bombay is my office. So Prabhupada also had, now all these are within the Krishna consciousness movement only. So Prabhupada also had this idea of, now he was talking from his perspective that this is the place I work, this is the place where I stay. But the idea of multiple conceptions of the institution is there. So now Prabhupada also was at times a taskmaster. And Prabhupada said, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. In 2 months, you publish the Chaitanya Charan. That was. So now, is that office? Well, like so much emphasis on the task. You could say that is a deadline, we have to meet it. Now, of course, you can say in the home also deadline is there. If there is a wedding and everybody has to make sure that everything works at the time. So the deadlines can be at home also, but broadly, the focus is on the tasks. So Prabhupada did give deadlines and some serious deadlines. So those we can say broadly associated with the vision of office. Now school, when I say school, the primary focus is it is a place for learning and then graduating out. Graduating out means what? That a person learns the values and then they learn the values, learn the skills, and they go out in the world and then they have their life. So in the first generation, becoming a devotee meant moving into the movement. So physically, for everyone, the movement was the institution was their home physically. But slowly things started changing. Now, most people don't live in the institution. So in that sense, physically it's not their home, but still, that's the place where we meet people who are sharing our values, people who are part of our community. And there, so in that sense, it's still a home. But school means the idea is I learn these values, then I will decide how I apply them, how much I apply them. And so, for example, somebody we went to a particular school. Now, some of us study engineering, and we may go into software after that. We may go into business finance after that. What we have learned in engineering, we carry some of it. So here, in one sense, when the focus is on learning, many times the boundaries become flexible. So the person sees this is a place where I go to learn certain things, but it's my life. There's a lot of emphasis on autonomy. So I know many devotees, even including Prabhupada disciples, they are firmly devoted to Prabhupada, but they say we are ISKCON alumni. That we that was an important part of our life, but they identify themselves more as ISKCON alumni than ISKCON members because they have had some issues with the institution and they feel that that they don't want to identify as members. So we learn something and then we are moving ahead with our life. Now that's only one way of looking at it. One is we see it as alumni, but the other is more important for most devotees is that the focus is on learning, on Shastra. That what is the point of building a big temple? What is the point of distributing books if you're not reading books ourselves? So we have to study. So for such people, the architecture of the temple, the sweetness of the kirtan and the decoration of the deities, all that is nice. But the real thing is the class. What kind of class do we have? So the class is just the same thing being repeated again and again. And they get monotonous. That's why you see in many devotees who are more intellectually oriented, they just check out of the movement mentally because they feel it's like I'm in a university where the kindergarten student and the postgraduate student are expected to attend the same class for the rest of their life. That's how the Sunday feast has become, for example. There's no point in it. There's nothing I have to learn. And to tell people, you should have taste and hear the same thing. So that just seems to an intellectual mind just a justification for intellectual laziness on the part of the teachers. The tradition has so much depth. Instead of thinking that, here there is a focus on I want to learn. I want to understand the philosophy. I want to understand the nuances, the technicalities. The school vision is very different from the office vision because in the school the focus is on learning. In the office vision, what's the point of memorizing so many shlokas? What is the point of knowing why this verse comes after this verse? Do something for Krishna, build a temple. So those who are more Brahmanically oriented, they focus on the school vision. Now, of course, I'm not saying everybody who seeks scriptural knowledge is Brahmanical. For many people, studying scripture may be just a means to impress others. So impress how learned I am, and therefore you should follow me. So even the school vision can be out of Rajoguna, where the learning is not to go closer to Krishna, learning is not even to become a better person, better human being, better devotee, but it is just to show other than I know so much, and therefore you should submit to me. But this is the school vision is where the focus is in university. Bhakti Thakur said towards the end of his life that we spent so much money building, getting marble for building these temples. It would have been better if we had just trained 10 people to become Gaudiya Vaishnava, not just scholars, Gaudiya Vaishnava scholars, but also internalize Gaudiya Vaishnava principles and teach that. Prabhupada also emphasized Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav. But it's interesting that during his lifetime, it did not get implemented much. It was later on that in the 1980s, when there were a lot of devotees having lots of problems and lots of questionable things happening, as is almost unavoidable after the charismatic founder departs. These devotees should not get misled by these kind of things. Devotees should know the philosophy. Devotees should understand the philosophy. There was one particular temple president whose wife started propagating the idea that this temple president was a disciple of Prabhupada. He is actually the reincarnation of Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Thakur. The devotees, oh my God, you are the reincarnation of our Guru's Guru. So obsequious to it. Okay. So what is happening? Devotees are not reading books. And even within devotional circles, sometimes misconceptions can be propagated. When Prabhupada heard this, he was enraged. And he just went there and took all the temple authority, temple keys, treasury, and other keys from that person and told that basically disempowered that person so that that particular misconception could not be propagated. But after Prabhupada departed, there many sort of misconceptions came up within the movement itself. And then those had to be countered. So devotees decided we have to make sure that devotees study Shastra. The devotees means the leaders decided. So the school conception is being significantly emphasized now for second initiation at least. Some amount of Bhakti Shastra is required. The school. Now, when it comes to be a last part, is that it is a cultural or ritual training ground. So this is where certain specific practices get overemphasized. What is the point of coming here? Oh, we need to learn the mantras so that we can perform this yajna perfectly. When you're doing arti, this is the way you should move your hand. This is the way you should move the achman. When you are doing this, do this only in this way, not in that. We are having the aarti with flowers. There's one leader who would say that, Bhopal, in the aarti plate, put 7 flowers. Not one more, not less. One time he just became catatonic. He just became out. He became explosive and the subordinate became catatonic. You have put 8 flowers. That is an offense. You are not faithful to Prabhupada. You are a deviant. So small things can be made huge. This is how it was done. This is how it has to be done. So the children in the Gurukul, the Prabhupada said, how many chapati? Prabhupada was asked, how many chapati should they be fed? Should the devotees eat? Prabhupada said 2, 3. Not too much. Now, everybody has capacity. Some people may just have a lot of this strong metabolism. So they were told nobody can eat more than 3 chapatis. Prabhupada said 2 or 3 chapatis. So now this is where small things have been taken and they're made into huge things. So this can also be with respect to sadhana. Sadhana is important, no doubt. But too much emphasis on sadhana can lead to people feeling guilty or being made to feel guilty. Wherein the idea is that if you're not doing this, then you are worthless. Everything that you do is of no value. There can be phases. Somebody has a job with a night shift. They cannot necessarily wake up in the morning. If there's a pregnancy in the family, then there's a newborn baby. Parenting is more than a 24/7 job. So there will have to be some amount of flexibility. But certain rituals, we can use the word positive word practices, and we have taken vows, so they're important. That's all true. But the whole of spirituality becomes reduced to these things only. How much are you conforming to this? And if you're not conforming to this, then you are worthless. So this is what is the most important thing. So it's the focus on specific activities, specific practices or activities. This is what has to be done in this way. And this can be very alienating for some people. I remember one Mataji, I met her in, where was this? In Europe. And she said that her husband got a heart attack and passed away suddenly. And she called her spiritual master and told that she was shattered and she was broken. And the first thing her spiritual master asked her was, had he completed his rounds on that day? I said, "You're a human being. Is that the only concern on I talked with the spiritual master also. He said, he had made a vow. Had he completed that vow? That was my concern. He said, but sometimes in that context, it can come off as monstrously insensitive. I remember another spiritual master when some accident happened and and several disciples died. The, the first thing he did was, he was in a different country. He called everyone, asked how their family is, and he asked the counselor take care of the family, especially where some people had become widows or orphans or whatever. So there's no mention at all about whether on that particular day when the plane had crashed, had they completed their rounds or not. It can seem so narrow-minded and so insensitive at that particular time. So the specific practices, are they important? Now, each of these is important. Prabhupada, for example, had people who were like members and who did normal service. But because they didn't fit into ISKCON's definition of success, they didn't become devotees, they didn't become initiated. Now you see, Prabhupada in the 7 purposes of ISKCON does not mention initiation at all. It does not even mention 16 rounds or 4 rights for that matter. So Prabhupada valued them, but because they did not fit into the institution's definition of success, most of them have been like wiped out of the historical memory of ISKCON. But they did an enormous amount of service. Some of them, of course, are there in the Juhu temple and other places. But many people helped Prabhupada in many different ways. But they didn't become initiated. However, Prabhupada was not judgmental towards them. Are you chanting 16 rounds or not? What time are you waking up and what time are you chanting? No, that's their life. They were ready to do seva, and Prabhupada appreciated their willingness to do seva. So, and he engaged them accordingly. So, yes, sometimes when this is almost because the Prabhupada talks about this in terms of, say, it's like a military discipline. We are in a war and we should not question our commander. And then Prabhupada, there are other places that Prabhupada says that we have to be independently thoughtful. Ultimately, we have to fly our own plane. Nobody else, our commander is not going to fly our plane for us. And if we find that we are in too much danger, we are not able to say our plane is becoming less in fuel, we have to make a decision. The commander is not going to make a decision at that time. So the point is that each of these visions can have shastric backing. We can have backing through Prabhupada's statements. And each of these can also have operational, functional value in the world. But the thing is, I'll conclude with 2 points over here now. That fanaticism, when does it occur? When my vision is equated with the only vision. So if I operate primarily based on the principle that this is a university, this is like a school, start thinking that somebody who has built a huge, magnificent temple for Krishna where 50,000 people are coming every day. How many shlokas do you know? How you don't even know this reference? You have not read this Acharya's book, Acharya's commentary. How much do you read Prabhupada's books every day? So if I devalue someone based on that, then it's not healthy. It is being fanatic. So if I equate my vision to the only vision, that will be fanatical. And we should not be doing that. But at the same time, so we could say one extreme is to become fanatical, where my vision is the only vision. The other is to become insecure. Why? Because insecure will happen because when my vision does not match the authority's vision or the community's vision. And then therefore one starts thinking that maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm worthless, or maybe, if I'm doing this, I cannot be a devotee. And because I need to do this, therefore I cannot be a devotee. I remember one boy I met, he said that, when in your youth preaching, I met you. So there are people who may not want, so he said that, he was told that he started coming to Bhakti. He attended one of my classes. That was his first class at the youth meeting in one of the youth outreach centers. And then he said, I love the philosophy, but I just could not accept the practices. I met him in California. He's one of the biggest donors for a Mayavadi institution now. Not just a donor, but active member and supporter in many different ways also. So he said that, but I loved the philosophy, but I just couldn't uh, stick to the practices. I found, which practice would you find difficult? So he said that I was told that you cannot read any books other than Prabhupada's books. He said that since the age of 7, every week I have read 2 books. Make a habit of reading 100 books every year. So at least, and it's not just like novels. He said I like to read self-help. I like to read biographies. I like to read serious books. No, he said the idea that I should read only these books. If this is what ISKCON requires, this is what Krishna consciousness requires, I cannot be. So then he said, I still wanted to be spiritual. So I found an organization that was more accommodating for my intellectual needs. And he went there. So now we should be telling people what to read. If we start enforcing what you should not read. Now, most people don't read anything. Only thing they read is WhatsApp messages and social media posts. But for some people, books are their life. For Brahmanas, they live in books. So then read only books can become too intellectually confining for them. So similarly, it could be that somebody cannot become a pujari for whatever reason. And I told you cannot become pujari. What is the use of your service? So that should not happen. So what we should do is, we don't want to become fanatical and criticize others, insecure, and then devalue ourselves or devalue our practice of bhakti or our potential to practice bhakti also. Instead, we need to find like-minded association. So when we find like-minded association, that means, okay, this person is doing this and this person is doing this. So this is the mood. Now when we use the word mood, sometimes we use the word mood and mission together. The mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada. But in my understanding, these two are very different. There can be many moods. So Prabhupada had mood when he said book distribution is most important. He said when there's nothing as important as our gurukuls, that children are only moods are many, mission is one. So the mission is Krishna consciousness, and there can be many different moods in which the Krishna consciousness can be pursued. So we need to find like-minded devotees, those who have the same vision. Can there be something beyond HOFC? Some other conception? Of course, some people may have a combination of one or two also, but I'm not saying this is exhaustive. Like the first 4 is exhaustive. There's nothing beyond these 4 modes, 4 levels, apart 3 modes and transcendence. Although in real life, there could be a complex combination of the 4 levels in function. So there could be, but in contrast with this 4, there could be more than that also. And there could be a combination of these also. But this is indicative that just because devotees seem to be taking decisions, it just seem to be not making any sense for us. That does not mean those devotees are not in devotional consciousness. It just means they're operating from a different value system. Their value system is centered on the idea that this is a home or office or a school or a training ground. And that's why they make certain decisions. So, so rather than becoming judgmental towards others, we try to find our place. We try to find our place, and from there, we can move towards Krishna. From our place where we are secure right now, and we can steadily move towards Krishna. And this way, if we keep our purpose Krishna, then we will both move vertically upward from the lower modes. So with the purpose of Krishna, we will be able to move vertically through the modes towards transcendence. But where necessary, we will also move horizontally so that to a compatible conception, to a place where there is a place with a conception that is compatible with our understanding or our priority, our way of practicing bhakti. So individuals may have to do this, and leaders should also be broad-minded enough. That some devotees more scholarly, then they should not be told, come on, just go and distribute books. They need to be guided to some scholarly mentor or guide. Some devotees very particular into rituals. How is this yajna to be done? How is the worship to be done? Guide them to someone who is a specialist in that field and let them be engaged. We don't have to be the authority for everyone and we don't have to guide. We don't have to think that because I brought this person lifelong should be taking my guidance only. So if we have that broad-mindedness, then both so the devotees need to have the courage, and the authority needs to have the consideration by which this horizontal movement can be facilitated, by which everybody can uh, find their place where they can comfortably and sustainably move towards Krishna. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. Mainly, it was two large parts. One was we're talking about 4 visions. One was based on levels, and the other was based on perspectives. So on levels, I talked about the mountain. We have tamas, rajas, sattva, and shuddha sattva. So in shuddha sattva, we see this as, so all these we see these are arenas for different things. Arena for Krishna Leela. This is the Uttamadhikari vision. Then arena for purification. So we try to accordingly create an atmosphere. This is more a Madhyamadhikari vision. Then arena for achievement. It can be achievement for Krishna's service, but it's primarily the focus on achievement. And this is arena for domination. That nobody should question me what I am doing. Anybody challenges that person will be destroyed. Uh, this is definitely destructive. But all the other visions are possible to be engaged in Krishna service. And we need to be churning the milk. That means we need to be rising from where we are to a higher conception. And then I talked about how there could be these 4 conceptions of home, where relationships are prioritized over tasks. Not just tasks, relationships are prioritized even over learning, training in particular, everything else. Office, but I just focus on the contrast. Office is where tasks are prioritized. The school is where learning is prioritized. And training ground is where particular cultural or ritual practices are. So cultural ritual practices are prioritized. And each of these may be done with a sincere seva bhav. So it's not that seva bhav is a monopoly of only one person. But for us to be able to function, we need to avoid being fanatical, where we equate my vision is equal to the only right vision. And we become insecure and lose confidence and think that I cannot practice because my vision or my conception has no value. Instead, we take the responsibility to find like-minded association, whereby we can have the space by which we can have the place from which we can launch ourselves toward Krishna. And ultimately, for our purpose of Krishna consciousness, which is our supreme purpose, now we can move vertically, and vertically we move, each one of us will move at our pace. Some people may primarily be in Rajoguna, and for them to move towards Sattva will take their time. And horizontally, we will move from our place. We need to, so that is Krishna's mercy. The second part of 411 is Mama Vartamanu Vartante Manushyaha Path. All people are on my path. That means, what is it? From your place, at your pace, access Krishna's grace. Some from your place could be from the place of conception that you are at. This is the school, your place. If somebody thinks this is office and that person is at Rajoguna, for the majority of their life, they will serve in Rajoguna at your pace. They don't have to be guilted into coming to Sattva. They will come naturally. So from your place, at your pace, access Krishna's grace. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.